Hello everybody and welcome back to VetMap. Today we'll continue on the digestive system and we'll talk about the stomach. Basically just its anatomy today. Always we'll start with the basics, so stomach or ventriculus or gaster in Latin is basically just the widening of the digestive tract and is located between the esophagus and the duodenum and is in the abdominal cavity. Now it's just caudal to the liver and a little bit closer to the left side of the abdominal wall. Now, since we have many different species and different animals and their stomachs do vary, so for a cow, it will be different than a horse, but still it is more on the left side of the abdominal cavity. Also, it's caudal to the diaphragm as well as the liver, as already mentioned. Now, it consists of main 6 parts that you need to know. And as I already said, stomachs do differ quite a bit between species, meaning that dog's stomach is completely different from a horse's or a cow's stomach, but the main parts are still there. So today we'll just learn the anatomy of those basic parts. Now I will do a different video on stomach by species, but for today we'll just look at how it's classified by species. So first it can be differentiated by compartments. So basically a single compartment is found of the stomachs that carnivores, pigs, and equines have. So here we have the visual representation. I really love this one. Then we have animals that have multiple compartments to the stomach. Now, these are basically ruminants, so cows, sheep, goats, camels, and everything else. So it is often said that cows have or other ruminants have multiple stomachs, but in reality they just have a lot of compartments, and that like main stomach is more or less the same to the other animals. Now we can also differentiate the stomach by mucosal layer, so it can be simple, and we'll talk about that later on. The carnivores have that. And then we have the complex stomach by mucosal layer. So this type of stomach has ruminants, pigs, and again equines. So it has a glandular and non-glandular parts. So again, we have everything here. Now we will dive into the simple stomach's anatomy. So here we have a carnivore's or a dog's stomach. So first we have the cardiac part, which is right here. This is the area where the esophagus enters the stomach. Next we have the fundus, which is here. Then we have the body, which is here. Basically it's just for dividing the stomach into sections. So if we have a pathology or something, it's easier to tell where it is. So the fundus and the body sectioning is mainly for that. Then we have the pyloric part, which is here, and it does have quite a few elements to it, but the main thing you need to know is that the pyloric part and that it opens into the duodenum. Then we have the lesser curvature, so basically a less wide curve of the stomach. And then we have the greater curvature, so the wider, the bigger curvature of the stomach, which is basically on the bottom. Then we have incisura cardiaca, so basically the incision where the esophagus enters the stomach. And then we have incisura angularis, so basically the pyloric curve right here. again, the stomach has two surfaces. So one is parietal surface, which faces the diaphragm, and then we have the visceral surface, which faces the rest of the intestines in the abdominal cavity. Here we have more or less the same pictures, just again so you can quickly look at it and remember it better. So the esophagus, we're entering the stomach, we have the fundus, we have the body, and then the food and the feed or anything else in the stomach gets pushed to the pyloric part and it enters the duodenum. We have the lesser curvature, we have the greater curvature, and basically everything else that we will talk in the next slide about. So, some more anatomy. So we have the greater omentum, which is basically a different type of lipoidic structure. So basically fat that is attached to the greater curvature of the stomach. So it looks like a net almost. That's made up of white fat. And in that structure, there are two ligaments in the greater omentum. So we have the gastrophrenic ligament. So basically a ligament between stomach and the diaphragm, which is right here, so close to the cardia of the stomach. Then we have the gastrosplenic ligament or ligamentum gastrolineale. It does sound a little bit different in Latin, but we have the gastrosplenale, I think it's pronounced, also the same ligament, but in different literature there are different types of this term, so I just put a different one right here. And it's basically a ligament between stomach and the spleen, and it's right here, so just a little below the gastrophrenic one. And then in the lesser omentum, we have one ligament, which is the hepatogastric ligament. So basically just the ligament between stomach and the liver. And because stomach is caudal to the liver, so it attaches right here. This is where that ligament is. So closer to the pylorus part of the stomach. Discuss the layers in the stomach. This is a histological picture of how it looks. Now you can see a bit more of them, but the main layers of the wall are free if we don't go into the histological structures. So we have the mucosal layer, we have the muscular layer, and the serosa or the peritoneum. So basically the outer layer that wraps the entire stomach and doesn't let it get completely attached to other fixtures and other organs in the stomach. Now, if you watch the video on the esophagus, which is amazing as well, and I recommend watching it, so the main difference between these two structures is that the esophagus has adventitia on the outside and the stomach has serosa. Now the main difference between these two, I don't know why I can't say that word, that's weird. So the main difference between these structures is that the serosa is made not to stick to other structures, while adventitia, advance, or attach, is made to keep that structure in more or less one space and one place. So these are the main differences. Now some more information about the mucosa, so the inner layer of the stomach. So it does depend on the species, how I said at the beginning of this lecture. So the simple stomach has one simple layer of mucosa. It's not divided into two parts. So carnivores have this type of stomach mucosa. So basically it is wrinkly, pink in color and glossy, and it also has in that same epithelium, it has three types of glands. So it has cardiac glands, it has proper gastric glands, and then pyloric glands. Now, in the complex stomach, so this would be pigs, equines, and ruminants, we have a non-glandular part and then glandular. So the part with the glands have the exact same ones. The width of how many glands, what type of glands are in different regions does vary, but the types are the same. Now the non-glandular part is a little different. It's a little whiter in color and does not have glands and has less wrinkles. Now for the muscular layer, we have the external longitudinal layer, which is basically on the outside. I mean, the answer is in the name. And it has three different fibers. So the fibers are more or less the same of the muscles, but they do go in different directions. And that's why the stomach can make so many different movements. So we have longitudinal fibers. So you can see they go along the stomach. Then we have oblique external layer of fibers, which is right here. And then we have oblique internal layer. So again, it goes almost transverse to the stomach. And then we have the internal circular layer. And this layer forms the muscles. So we have two muscles, two sphincters. We have the one in the cardiac region and one in the pyloric region. So their main function is that one in the cardiac area ensures that the food doesn't go back into the esophagus if there's no need for it. And the one in the pyloric region ensures that the food or the feed that has been in the stomach already does not go back to the stomach from the duodenum. So also, again, I'll encourage to watch the video about the esophagus, because if we're talking about species, this muscle right here, the sphincter muscle of the cardiac region of the stomach, is really strong for horses, especially, and because of the angle that the esophagus enters the stomach, it gets even stronger. So that's why horses are basically not able to vomit, and how I already mentioned in the last lecture, you really need to watch the horse's stomach, especially if you're giving fluids or if it has colic, because if you give too much fluids, the stomach can rupture. If we have, let's say, a blockage in the duodenum, it will rupture and you can't do anything about it. The horse has to be put down. There's no going back from that. So do be careful and remember that. So this is everything for today's lecture. This is the literature and other sources for it. I'm glad you watched it, and next time we'll talk about the stomach by the species, because there are a lot of differences and I just didn't want to put everything in one lecture. So hope you liked it, and see you next time. Bye!